Hello.
Hello.
There we are. Hello, everybody.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey there. Okay, I think everybody's online. And is that Mayor Keller's number I see there, Larry?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. It's 7 o'clock, everybody. I'd like to start the meeting. Pete, if you can take roll, please.
Certainly. Mr. Doherty? Here. Ms. Redding?
Here.
Ms. Vader?
Here.
Ms. McHugh?
Here.
Mr. Mizell?
Here.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Ms. Gehring?
Here.
Mayor Keller?
Here.
Also present tonight is Chief Cummings, Ms. Tackett, zoning officer, Ms. Fountain, engineer, Mr. Trulove, solicitor, Ms. Zabo, treasurer, Ms. Connell, and myself.
Thank you. Next is on the agenda is the mayor's report. Larry?
Sure, I'll start off. Yeah, I'd like to say that unexpectedly, certainly for me, we have a full-time officer that has decided to take an early retirement, and Rich Joyner, he submitted his resignation on or around April 7th, and Rich was full-time in the borough for 17 and a half years, but I can remember probably my second year as mayor, he came on as a part-time police officer for about 3 or 3.5 years before he became full-time. So he's going to use some of his personal time. The actual effective date of his resignation will be April 24th. So I would ask County the Council will accept his resignation for retirement so that we can move forward and begin the next step.
Can I have a motion from council to accept the retirement of, I'm sorry, what's his name again? Joyner's first name?
Richard Joyner.
Richard Joyner. Can I have a motion to accept the resignation?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Opposed?
so
No.
thank
Okay,
you very much,
thank
Council. Now the next step is that has transpired and you've accepted his resignation. The next step is we have a Civil Service Commission, which is comprised of 3 individuals, 3 residents of our town, Karen Dowdy and Kenny Hartley and Les Isbrand. And our first alternate is Victoria Short. But we have an annual test that takes place. It's called a Bucks County Consortium test. And that's going to happen on May 24th. And basically anywhere from, I don't know how many will apply for the test, but it's for all of Bucks County. So there will probably be 200 to as many as 400 potential candidates to become police officers in Bucks County. And we're in a unique position right now in April 20th that we have right now that if we can convene and get our Civil Service Commission to begin processing all the necessary responsibilities they have, that when the results of the test come out, we're in a very good position that we'll be getting a first dibs on the best candidates, the candidates that have tested the best out of all the amount, whether it's 300 candidates that tested. So what we do, which we have to do by law, is we will, Chief and through the Civil Service Commission, will take the top 10 highest tested individuals that had the highest results, and then we'll proceed to have a oral test here at the borough, which will usually be comprised of 3 police chiefs from Bucks County who will do the oral testing, and they'll narrow it down from the 10 that they tested, and the top 3 will be chosen, and then those 3 candidates will be presented, Chief, and I will present them to Borough Council, and we'll be able to go forward to replace Officer Joyner, because currently we have 7 full-time officers now, plus the chief, and we have 4 part-time officers. So it sends us out a little bit, and of course we're going right into season. It's just around the corner, so Chief has another potential part-time candidate, but it takes a lot of hours out. So the sooner we can move forward to Civil Service Commission, the faster we'll be able to be prepared to hire and at least present 3 fine candidates to council sometime, hopefully by, I would guess by the end of June or by mid-July. It does take time to do the test, but so I would ask the council give us permission to convene the Civil Service Commission so we can get started and be ready for the candidates that graduate from this test with the highest scores.
Thanks, Larry. Council, can I have a motion to accept authorizing the Civil Service Commission for police officer hiring?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Any questions from council?
I just have a comment to make, and I don't want to start getting into the civil service agreement, but it seems as though being left with nobody for 3 months, or having to, deal with 3 months, that perhaps, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, but it seems like the amount of notice we were given here seems really inadequate. So it's just a point, fact as far as I'm concerned, but I don't know what we
That's
can do with
correct,
that.
and these are all officers who are under a PBA contract, and we could theoretically, we could have 2 other officers decide to retire, and they could hand in their retirement slip, and one could do it in another week, and another could do it in 2 weeks. There's no question, Ken, that this was unexpected, and when it happens, it puts a hole in one of our sales for sure. And that's just it's the beauty, that's the beast that we have to deal with. If a police officer gets hurt and they're out for 2 or 3 months, same thing, Ken. We're constantly battling the full-time situation along with supporting it with part-time officers that sometimes we can be flush with part-time officers, and other times we can be thin, because many officers that are part-time here, they get a lot of experience, and they end up getting hired by another municipality because they're no longer raw, because they learn a lot here under Chief Cummings and working in New Hope Borough. So it's
Okay,
it's a catch-22, and it's perpetual, Ken. It's been like this for 23 years for me. Sometimes it's feast and sometimes it's famine.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Yep.
council, thanks, Larry. Council, we have a motion
You're
on the table here. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is consideration for issuing a request for the design and engineering for the parking garage, and this is an RFP. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion from council. Any questions from the public?
Yes, there are several hands raised. The first one is Sandy Santello.
Hi, I actually, at the request of Peter Gray, I sent my question in as requested. I don't know if you want me to repeat it, but it went to info@newhopeborough.org.
Sandy, Peter's gonna, Pete Gray will read all those questions later on at the meeting.
Well, I had a question related to the motion that's on the floor right now.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question was, whether there was a feasibility or an ROI study done prior to moving into asking for RFQs or RFPs, so that as a community, we understand what the return of investment is prior to moving forward, and then what that sequence of events. It just seems like we're moving ahead before we've actually, I see you shaking your head, Peter, but it just.
Permit me to answer this, please?
Yeah, Peter Meyer, can you answer this, please?
Yes. We cannot do a feasibility study or calculate a return on investment until we know what a parking garage is likely to cost. And we can't get a figure on what a parking garage is likely to cost until we get some design parameters worked out with an architect who also could be responsive to other concerns that may be raised by others in the borough about how the garage gets designed. We cannot do a feasibility study before then, Sam.
Okay, oh, I appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying that, Peter. It just seemed like we were moving ahead pretty quickly. So just so that
We
I
have made
understand.
no commitments.
Okay,
Made no commitments to a design. We have made no commitments to a dollar figure. We are looking for an advisor to help us move forward.
okay. May I just clarify what I heard and then I'll keep quiet. So basically, this is to get a rendering so that you'll be able to move forward with feasibility ROI and community input.
We will be getting community input before we get around to a final rendering. We will
Okay.
be getting community input in the course of the design phase.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Peter, any other question? Pete, any other questions?
Yes, there's another hand raised, Steve Owens.
Steve Coppins, you're on.
Steve?
Steve, have you unmuted yourself?
I think he is unmuted.
All right, I think we're gonna have to move on, Pete. Any other questions?
Only other hand that is raised actually Sandy Santel, but I believe that's from the fire comment.
Correct. All right. Council, we have a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Excuse me, Ms. Garing, would you want me to read the emails into the record at this time for the parking garage, or wait till later?
Let's wait till under public comment. We'll read everything in because we have a list of them. Thank you. Next is the motion to approve the resolution for the fire company block grant for volunteer incentives. We've been doing this for a number of years. Those who qualify, the fire, I can't even talk, will get a $500 grant. We've been doing this for a couple of years. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the
I'll
motion.
make that.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Any from the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is consideration to extend our fire inspection agreement with Eagle Fire Company for another year. This is the agreement we've had since 2016. They do all our fire inspections. So can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that one. I'll second it.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Any from the public?
No hands are raised.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is to consider a proposal from New Hope Eagle Fire Company for fire marshal services. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Pete, can you explain this to council since this is something new? And I know, Mr. McMillan's online too.
Yes, so, this fire marshal proposal that has, been brought before council at this time is for, in the past, we've had fire marshal services, that was handled by the fire company, but it was nothing, on a consistent basis. With this proposal, we will have something on a consistent basis to provide weekly. We will have this individual assist the building inspector with plan reviews as they relate to the fire aspects of any type of development. It will also assist the chief with any community-related events, and also any fire inspections. So it's a wide variety of items that have been presented. The proposal, there's two proposals that were provided. The second proposal is on an annual basis for, I believe, $16,000. And the borough budgeted $40,000 for this task for the year, so it would be under budget. So borough's council is asked to consider this at this time.
Discussion from council, any questions? Any from the public?
No hands are raised.
No hands raised?
No hands raised.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is, we're going to go into our list of certificates of appropriateness. The first one is for 11A West Bridge Street for a sign installation. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Just very briefly, I am an owner of a property in close proximity to that property, so I'll be recusing myself of this particular vote.
Thank you. Any other discussion from council? Any from the public?
No hands are raised.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is certificate of appropriateness for 40 West Ferry Street to replace one window with two windows. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll
Make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
second.
Any discussion from council? Any from the public?
No hands.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Certificate for appropriateness for 19 Canal Street, installation of a fence. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second it.
Questions? Any discussion from council? Anyone from the public have a question?
No hands.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next is certificate for appropriateness for 36 West Bridge Street, installation of two signs. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion from council? From the public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is a certificate of appropriateness for 123 West Bridge Street for a sign installation. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Discussion from council? Any questions from the public?
No hands.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is a certificate of appropriateness for 12 West Bridge Street for a sign installation. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ken. Any discussion from council? Anyone from the public?
No
All
hands.
in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is a certificate of appropriateness for 129 South Main Street, installation of 2 signs. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion from council? Any from the public?
No hands.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is a certificate of appropriateness for 110A South Main Street for a sign installation. Can I have a motion for approval?
Excuse me, that's 110A West Bridge Street, Connie?
No.
No, it's 110A South Main Street.
Okay, on the memo I have from Joanne, it's listed.
We had 129, then under it, I have 110.
Yes, I believe that is 110A.
Yeah, the Bridge Street one was 11A, which is probably hiking. It was close to 11 versus 110, so it's pretty close.
Well, this is for,
I'm sorry, the memo I have is dated March 11, 2021, and it says in the subject line, Certificate of Appropriateness, 110A West Bridge Street. That's what I'm trying to say. So which, do I have the wrong memo in this section, or?
That might be the one for 11A West Bridge Street, Doherty, possibly. Or it could be 110 South of Main, so.
I think what it is a typo in the cover memo, but I'm okay. I think the content that I have here says Savage Designs 110A. I just want to make sure what I'm voting on is exactly what we're doing, right? So is it one Savage Design? Is that what it is?
Yeah, and that's 110 South Main.
Yes.
And
All right,
the
I'm
certificate
good.
has the correct address on there.
Yeah, I have South Main.
okay,
Okay.
thank- all right. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next one is a certificate of appropriateness for 82 South Main Street for a sign installation. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that
Make-
motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Any from the public?
Hands.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is certificate of appropriateness for 102C South Main Street for a sign installation. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Louise. Can I have a second?
I'll
Second.
second.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Any from the public?
No hands.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is a certificate of appropriateness for 97 South Main Street for a sign installation. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Any from the public?
No hands.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, approval of our meeting minutes for March 16. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that
Make-
motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have approval of accounts payable. Can I have a motion for approval of the April accounts payable in the amount of $248,578.49, and the March 26th and April 9th payroll in the amount of $82,160.10 and $71,303.03. Can I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to go into reports now. Park and Rec. Do you have a report, Louise?
Just a quick one. We've been working with a local Girl Scout troop who is working to earn their Bronze Award in Lenape Park. So I attended their troop meetings on behalf of the Parks and Rec board, and then We've had extra meetings with the troop and their troop leaders since then. They're planning on doing a butterfly garden installation in Lenape Park with a scavenger hunt element to make it more family friendly. So we're really excited to work with them. They're still planning their budget. Part of their Bronze Award is to do that. So we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more about that. And then the Parks and Rec Committee meets later this month. We'll be talking about board positions to fill, the summer planting, and a winter festival update. So that's what we've got going on over there.
Thank you so much. Shade Tree.
Shade Tree, yes. We have our Arbor Day event coming up this Friday. So it's very exciting. It's going to be held at the New Hope Shopping Center, which is where Cornerstone, McDonald's is, McCaffrey's. The Shade Tree Commission has partnered with that New Hope Center Associates, the managing company, and together they're planting 7 new trees. There's going to be 2 red buds, 2 hornbeams, and 3 pear trees. So that'll help to restore and beautify the Meridian that's adjacent to Bridge Street right there, and also the shopping center parking lot. In the past, there were trees along the Meridian, but they got knocked down over the years. So this should really help brighten up that a lot. So everybody's invited to attend. It will be this Friday from 1 to 3. We're going to have members of the public there, also Bucks Beautiful, Bowman's Hill Wildflower Preserve is going to be there, Friends of the Delaware Canal. A lot of the merchants from the shopping center will be out there giving away things. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to dedicate the trees, and the Bucks County Herald will be there. So all members of the community and all members of council are invited to attend. So we hope to see everybody on Friday.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is our Finance Oversight Committee, Mr. Doherty.
Hi, everyone. I guess first off, tonight's focus on the Finance Committee is, from the Finance Committee's perspective, is going to be sharing some information concerning our budget and our performance against budget. First off, I'd like to say thanks to everyone who's for their patience over the last couple months. I know it's been a while since we tried to fire this off. We think that actually, I think in the last 2 weeks, I've learned that this delay actually has greatly improved the quality of what we're actually going to be able to present this evening. For one thing, we now have March 31 results, et cetera. So it also gave me personally time to really think about how to structure this material so that it's not just a open fire plug of information. And it takes a lot of time to really to synthesize and down financials so that they're meaningful and that they have some context that people can understand what the numbers mean. So what's in a number, that type of thing, and the impact of the numbers and the relativity of the numbers. So without further ado, we're going to start a presentation that we hope is the first one of many, and we are going to build on this over the coming quarters. So this is just a cover page. New Hope, it's observations on first quarter 2021 revenue and expenses versus the 2021 budget, as well as future financial reporting plans. And what that means is that we're going to detail what we will be presenting to council and in an open public meeting, all the materials that we'll be rolling out to you over the coming months. So that title actually means exactly what it says. So without further ado, we'll get right into the thing. What we're going to do before we dive into numbers is set the stage, because I know not everyone is on the same level of understanding and background. We've had people who've lived here for decades. We've had people who on this call who have served on council. We have people with financial backgrounds, and we have people who may have arts backgrounds. So what we want to try to do is try to get everyone familiar with what we're talking about, so that the numbers will be meaningful to everyone at the same level. So just some way of background here. Our 2021 budget is developed in the third and fourth quarter of 2020 by our staff, primarily by Peter Gray and Christina Sabo, and it's released to the public in draft in late 2020, and it's adopted in public meetings, and it's published, and it's also put on our website, and it's adopted in a public meeting. Council has roughly 6 to 8 weeks to stare at the numbers, and we actually vote on the final numbers in I believe, the last meeting of December. So it is a very open and transparent process. It's not just a budget that we put out on the website. A borough manager use everything that's available to them, including all the year-to-date numbers, prior years' experiences, trends that they expect to occur for future years, as well as the plans that we have for those years to estimate the coming year's revenue and expenses. What we're trying to do with this presentation, what the first one out of the box is going to do, is give a mid-year snapshot as to how the actual revenue and expenses are tracking against that budget, okay? This is a sort of I don't know if it's an editorial comment, but this is the first time that any council that we are aware of, I put the exclamation point as mine, so I apologize for that, but has attempted to create and share a mid-year summary. So it is a bit of a learning curve, I think, for me, and I'm open to suggestions, of course, et cetera. So we appreciate the input of everyone, especially those people who have a keen interest in this stuff, in the material. While LM efforts have been made to make sure that these numbers that you're going to see later and our observations on those numbers are accurate, we still nonetheless have to say that this first report, at least, is a work in progress. So we hope that each report will get better and stronger each time. With modification, the format that you'll see a little later will become standardized over the next 2 quarters. Okay, so that's some background. Now here are some gory details as to what goes in the numbers. Again, this is to try to get everyone to know what it is we're describing. First off, this is based on actual revenue from January 1st and paid expenses through March 31st. Now, there's not been audited, but these are the things that checks were cut, checks were received and deposited. Now that sort of is a mouthful. I'm just going to let you know, because it is a certain date like that. You don't know what's going to happen over the next 9 months. We don't know if we're going to have, so observations about projections in some cases, they're as best as we can do. We do not know if our parking revenue is going to exceed last year by X dollars, because we don't know how many rainy weekends we might get. We feel very confident, though, over the long haul of a summer, that the numbers are going to come in at what we think they're going to come in at. So they're not bulletproof, but we do feel very confident about the reliability of these figures. Now, that said, I mean, these numbers are as of March 31st. On April 1st, I don't know if that was a Saturday or not, mail came to the borough, okay? And there could be checks in there and invoices in there. They're not in these numbers, okay? So they could have been delayed in the mail, etc. This borough, just like all boroughs, are not on an accrual basis. We're on a cash basis. And so it's whatever actually got received and deposited and or whatever was actually cut out of the system. A check was cut. So it's a cash basis. So that's a little bit of a wrinkle, okay? However, to the opposite of that, we're in a fortunate space because our revenue and expenses and the fact that our staff does a very good job at keeping all of our invoices and our revenue deposited on a very timely basis, and our invoices cut as generated and put into the approval process for the next month. We feel that this will produce a very reliable snapshot. Now, the other good thing is because so much of the expenses, this is the last bullet here, so much of our expenses are payroll and benefits costs. More than half of all of our money is payroll and benefits costs. They're not paid with a lag because people get paid every other Friday. So that's a big chunk of the money, and that's dead on. Okay, so that's a good portion of at least the expense side being extremely precise. Okay. Now, the last two things about methodology. The summary does not reflect items, so you're gonna see a number of $4.3 million. So I'm gonna tell you that I'm gonna call that the budget, $4.3 million. Okay, that number is a composition of a lot of money that we received from various sources, but it does not include parts of the real estate tax millage that are basically 100% pass-throughs. Okay, it's money such as the ambulance mills and the fire mills and such as that. If you look at your tax bill, you'll see there are about a half a dozen different little categories that comprise the New Hope Borough's tax bill, and the ones that are pass-throughs, since whatever amount of money we receive for them, we write a check to those other entities. We're not including them in this presentation, okay? So it's just the way this presentation's done. It improves the accuracy is what will happen, or the accuracy of the analysis. It's complicated, but it's a good thing to do it that way. Now this is the great news, and you'll see later what our plans are. It is expected that all of the numbers are going to firm up, and by that I mean become much, much more reliable indicators of reality, okay, by the second and third quarter. And by that I mean, and that's because so much more of what we expected will come in, and if it's not exactly what we expected, we'll then know about it. And other things will come in high and other things will come in low. So the first quarter is really in corporate America corporate America uses an accrual basis, but on a cash basis, the first quarter is not that great of an indicator. It's worth something, but it gets much more reliable in the second and third quarter. And so I'm asking folks, when they see the numbers, to keep in mind that when we do this again, we're committing to do this each quarter now, that you will see these numbers firm up and become very close to the budget projections. Okay? Thank you. Now, into the revenue, okay? As way of background, I think there's been a lot of talk lately about our borough real estate taxes and where's the money come from and what would happen. So one of the things we have to point out right up front is that New Hope Borough's real estate tax, the tax that we collect from every property owner in the borough, roughly 1,200 or 1,300 parcels, is 9.6% of the total real estate tax bill. Okay, so it's less than $1 out of $10. So if you in your mind think my real estate taxes are $3,000 or $5,000, whatever it is, less than 10% of that actually goes to New Hope Borough. The other 90% goes to our friends in Doylestown, the county of Bucks. They get about 17.6%. And then up on Bridge Street, there's a rather large building there that collects 72.8% of whatever your taxes are for the year. So what does that mean, though? Percentages could mean a lot of things. Well, if we apply that to the average homeowner in the borough, what we did is we just basically figured out what all the ratables are and divided by the number of parcels. And what happens is when you do that, you end up that the average borough homeowner pays $675 to New Hope Borough. That same person, if you are that average person, and that average person, by the way, is somebody that owns a house that's worth about $500,000. Okay, so if your house is worth $1 million, your numbers might be twice as big as this. If your house is less, they would be less. Okay, so averages, that's how averages work. That same average homeowner would pay $1,250, has to pay $1,250 to the county and $5,150 to the very large building up on Bridge Street. Okay? So that's when people say real estate taxes, I think it was important to put out there. And when the borough says we've not raised taxes for 7 years, it's that 9.6% part that hasn't been raised, because the county has raised its taxes every other year just about. And I think everyone knows that the school raises the taxes every single year. Okay? Now, where does the money come from? Okay, I just talked about the real estate taxes. Well, it turns out that the borough gets about 76% of its $4.3 million from 3 places. All the other money comes from a whole bunch of 30 other little sources, but the majority of it comes from these 3 sources: the earned income and real estate transfer tax. Each of those is 0.5%. Those 2 taxes account for 40% of our $4.3 million revenue. Okay. The next thing is parking kiosks, the $1.50 an hour to use the kiosk, the lots that we have up near the community center, some people rent monthly spots, that type of stuff. Those collect 24% of our $4.3 million. Okay, it is our belief that roughly 80% of that money is paid by people who do not live here. Okay, we don't have hard and fast numbers with that, but we think that most of the kiosk money is paid by visitors. Okay, we don't have hard data, and that's, I think, if you were going to have someone pay for stuff who's coming and visiting like that and using resources, I think it's a healthy thing to collect parking revenue from them. That was an editorial comment, by the way. I'm not on the parking lot. Real estate taxes is the final piece of that 76%. Those real estate taxes, which again is this $675 that the average homeowner, they represent 12% of the $4.3 million budget. Okay? So that gives you a flavor. There is a reason why we're going into these things, because you're going to see a little later the actual numbers and how it relates to these things. And people, so when you say my taxes are going to go up, you'll know what that, and then they're not, but you'll know where this money's actually coming from. Okay? Now, where's the money go? That's the next question. We collect $4.3 million. What do we spend it on? As with every municipality out there, the majority of our expenses goes to salary and benefit costs for our employees. Okay, these costs are paid with no lag. It's actually, that's a little false, because there is a 1-week lag. If somebody gets paid on a Friday, they're actually getting paid for the 2 weeks prior to that Friday, but it's very current, is my point. So being that most of the expenses are being paid for salary and benefits, and those things are being paid current, those things then are, that means that the numbers are pretty reliable. So if we spend that much money on employees, how many do we have? Well, here's a little chart. I hope folks can see it. There's 4 people in administration, 4 in public works, total of 8. There's 10 full-time police officers, so there's 18 employees. These headcounts have been very stable over the past 5 years. Unlike many municipalities, we have not gone down this path where suddenly nice-to-have jobs are suddenly made permanent, and suddenly there's people tripping over themselves and you need a new building to house all your employees. we've done, this council and the previous councils, I want to make sure that that's clear, have done a very good job at keeping the head count from just growing like a mushroom, if you will. Also, we use a good deal of part-time staff for peak and seasonality issues and things like that, which is also a very good practice because it keeps our costs down, because the cost for the part-timers is dramatically less than the cost of the full-time employees. Okay, so that's where the money goes. Okay, I promise we're going to get to numbers. Okay, I'm going to go to the punchline now, the result. I'm going to show you the numbers in a minute. First off, it's been the 2020 experience as well as 2021 have been just an incredibly like nothing like anyone's ever seen for organizations, nonprofits, corporations, and municipalities. The challenges are everywhere. We actually had been part of the finance committee was tracking the impact of COVID on our finances and found that, of course, it had negative impact, but nothing so dramatic that it needed to endanger any of our programs. Despite all these challenges, we want to tell you right now, the blue part is the punchline. I'm going to show you all the numbers in a minute, that as of the end of the first quarter of 2021, our financial performance for all major revenue and expense line items, as well as the bottom line, are tracking against the budget as expected. Okay? So that's, I actually gave away the lead story, but let's go into the numbers now. Okay, what you have here is what's called a P&L, a profit and loss statement from our QuickBooks accounting system. And as you can see, it says, I'll take the very first one up there as an example. And it says revenue, and then the expenses are below that, okay? But revenue, real estate, real property taxes, and from January to March, we collected $9,700, and then the budget was $509,000. And it says over budget, but you'll see there's a negative there of negative $500,000. That means we're $500,000 in the hole on that line item. That's not good news, right? Well, that's because that particular line item, it doesn't come due. Our taxpayers pay it in April, May, and June. They don't pay it in Jan, February, and March. So we could actually go through almost all of these many of these line items and find that there's a reason why it's showing that it's far above budget or far below budget sitting as we sit here on March 31st. Well, I could sit here for an hour and go through those numbers, and it's not going to do you much good. So what I did was I took this same exact information that you see here, didn't change any of the numbers. I just reformatted them in such a way that that they're more readily understandable. And Pete, if you could go to the next chart. Okay, good. Now what this is, you'll see that, well, the first one doesn't say real property taxes anymore, does it, right? It says enabling taxes. Enabling taxes on the first one was like the 6th or 7th line. Well, they were all mixed up. So what I did to make this simpler, so it's actually, it makes more sense and also is of more value, is we sorted the budget by the amount of the budget, by the 2020 budget amount. So the most significant things come to the top. The most significant revenue item that we have is the enabling tax of $1,840,000. Okay, that's a big portion of our $4.3 million, a very large portion. Okay, So if you take, now you say, well, look at that. We collected 421,000 in those 3 months of that. And that amount, 421 of 1,000,008 is 23% of the budget. Well, that's really good news. And here's why. March 31st is 1/4 of the year. That type of tax, the enabling tax, which is the earned income tax and the property transfer tax, if you recall, primarily, that type of tax comes in very smoothly throughout the year. The fact that we are just basically 11 to 12 weeks into the 2021 plan year, and we're at 23%, means that we're going to we're highly, very, very likely, unless there's a horrible recession somewhere in the third or fourth quarter, we're very likely to collect all of that $1,840,000. Okay, so you see, I hope that makes sense. That's the first thing we did, is we sorted the big ones to the top, and then very arbitrarily, I split the major ones being anything over $100,000. Okay, if $100,000 is approximately, it's a little less than 2.5% of the 4.3 million. So I split it at 100. If it's over 100, I called it major. And if it's under 100, I called it minor. Now, some of these minor numbers are pretty big, but I had to cut it off someplace. I then looked at each and every one of these revenue items and tried to see, okay, are they running hot or are they running really cold? Do we have an issue? Do we have an issue where we're expecting to get $500,000 and it's trending to only bring in 200? That would be a big problem, right? Well, there aren't any problems like that. I personally stared at every one of these, and I'm pretty good at this, and found that for any line item that was not satisfying its projection as of 1/4 of the year, there was a very plausible reason for that to have happened. Okay, the first one I can tell you is the third line there. It's the simplest one to grasp. Is that we expect to collect $509,000, the third line there, $509,870 for real estate taxes, but we've only collected $9,000, right? If we were collecting that money every month, we should be at $130,000 right now, but we don't. We collect all of that money, that $675 per household that we collect, that's that money. We collect all of that money in April, May, and June, okay? So the next time you see this updated, that number is gonna look like 93% or something. It's gonna be some number like that. It's gonna pop. But we can't then assume that it's gonna create 186%, if you see my point. And that's the art of what you do when you try to forecast a budget. You have to sort of stare at the line items and determine what's coming in, what's still out there, okay? All right, now if we can go to the expenses, just real quickly, there's some things down there, okay? Again, we sorted the highest expenses to the top of the expense list, and we noticed, well, one thing I made a slight change here, because the police pension contribution of $227,000 would be 4 or 5 lines away from the pension. So I moved that right next to the police cost center itself. So you could add those two numbers up and you'll get, I don't know, $2,220,000, okay? That's how much our police force and their benefits cost. But that, if you think about it, we have 4.3 million and 2.2 million of it, 2.22 million of it is for the police force. So I don't think anybody in town thinks that money's not well spent. So you'll see Public Works there is, that's our Public Works department. This, by the way, when it says Public Works, that includes their pay, their salaries, all the other things that go into supporting that department, their trucks and things like that. They've got general government administration, financial administration, planning and zoning, and so forth. That is, now this, by the way, I know a lot of people were asking for this material. So this presentation is going to be available online for, I don't know if it's online or Pete's going to email. I don't know that answer. I'm sorry. So it's either going to be online or our manager is going to email it to anybody who wants it. I'm not certain how Pete wants to handle that. But so at any rate, that is, we could go into any one of these line items if you wanted to. The next chart, I could go into every one of them, but I don't know how much time I'd have. Okay, tonight, what you saw tonight, we know is not what everything that folks have been asking for. Okay, there's more that we need to get out there for folks. But again, this is the first time in anyone's memory, and I've been here 5 years. I think some people have been here for 15 and 20, and some people have been here for 25. No one has ever seen a mid-year financial update. Okay, so you're going to have to give us some time to pull these things together this first year anyway. So what we are looking to do is present an update of these observations through June 30th in our July work session. Okay, that may actually have to move to the July council meeting, depends upon vacations and stuff. And a summary of our cash and capital project balances as of that same date. So in addition to the budget, you also have your, for lack of a better term, your checking account that has money in it. So we would give an update of how much money is in the checking account that pays for a lot of this stuff, because money goes into it and goes flying out, as well as there's a capital projects balance out there. And there's a balance out there for the street lights fund. And it's a very complicated subject we're actually working on right now, the Streetlights Fund. I could do 10 minutes on it if you want, but that would be one of the ones that we illustrate to it. That's in the June meeting. The third quarter update will include everything you saw tonight, plus the cash and capital projects and the streetlights and all those funds, plus a summary of our bond debt, of our existing bond debt, okay? And I'm going to telegraph to you right now that I've already analyzed that. The Finance Committee has looked at it for the last 2-3 years, okay, and kept an eye on our bond debt. And I'm going to just telegraph you informally and unofficially that the borough is in very, very good condition relative to the amount of debt that it is carrying. It's in a very extremely good condition relative to any kind of metric or comparison one could make to surrounding communities, right? But the actual summary will be presented at the third quarter with all the above stuff. Then in the fourth quarter, what we would do is include all of the above things, which is all the things you saw and all the things I just talked about, plus updated to the fourth quarter, updated through 9/30, not September 30th, plus a summary of the results of our pension plans funding analysis. And I'm going to telegraph to you on that too is in very healthy condition, okay? So that's what I have for tonight. I hope folks have found it interesting. If you have questions about it or anything like that, if you could send, this will be posted on the internet. I mean, on our website, I think, and from there, I think might be the best way to answer questions. But if you have straightforward questions, I'd be glad to take them. Connie, you'd have to let them have me take them. Sorry about that. But that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Dan. You did a wonderful job. Thank you to our staff for working with you. I know it took quite a bit of time for that.
I want to say something about that. This project actually took probably, in the last 2.5 weeks, probably took a total of probably 10 hours or so of our borough manager's time just to get this part of it, and even longer probably for our treasurer, and probably a similar 20 hours or so of my, this stuff doesn't write itself, especially when you have to be very careful and making sure that you're making the right, you're coming to the right conclusions and everything. So I have to applaud the efforts of our borough manager, Peter Gray, and Christina Zabo. They have been incredibly supportive during these past 3 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you, Dan. It shows how much work you poured into that. And I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but all of our council members have other full-time jobs, and just taking the time out of your life to make this happen, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to second that. Lori, you stole the words right from me. Dan, Pete, Christina, thank you very much.
Any questions from the public?
Several hands are raised. Mr. Bill Clapper.
Mr. Clapper, if you can unmute yourself.
I have, Connie.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Dan, thanks so much. I appreciate and recognize your efforts and recognize you've got a ways to go, and I know you do also. I'm going to analyze the data once it's online, and hopefully I'll have some more questions for you as you've offered. I have one simple question tonight, though. How was the $500,000 revenue from cell tower lease treated? Is that in current income, or where's that going to be placed on the balance sheet?
That's a good question, Bill. That payment arrived after April 1st. Currently, our staff, as far as the receipt of it, where it's going to be parked, it'll be parked. I'm not an accountant. I'm a financial person. I'm not an accountant. So it's going to be parked wherever our borough manager and treasurer park it. But as far as what it's going to be used for, our borough manager and treasurer are going to come up with some recommendations on how that money should be allocated, and we expect that to be presented at a work session. But it's a very good question. But the money came in after, and that goes back to because we could have easily put that $575,000, and said, oh, it's on the desk here, so let's put in a number. We're not playing games with Bill. Basically, it just hasn't gotten. It had not arrived by the time these numbers had been produced.
Okay, I understand. My second question is that, Dan, what you've shown is that we really do have a financial challenge as a budget from an operating standpoint as a borough. With the revenues are essentially from areas that are capped. You're capped in terms of the real estate tax, the earned income tax. We really don't have much control over improving those, do we?
That's an observation. My comments are on how the budget's performing. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't have that same feeling as you do, though, Bill. But it's an opinion. The earned income tax bill is linked to wages, okay, right. And wages go up every year, so that's not capped, and that's a huge portion of the money. That's the first part. The second part is at some point, the borough, the county of Bucks. This is a complicated subject, Bill, but sorry if I'm going down a rabbit hole. At some point, the county of Bucks is going to have to reassess all the properties, the 300,000 residences in Bucks County. They have not been reassessed in about 20 years.
Yes.
So that unto itself, with an area such as New Hope, that, and we would probably adjust our millage downward because we're not looking for a windfall, but that we continually on Main Street, et cetera, there are, another thing is that's not capped is the real estate taxes, Bill. The River House taxes to the borough were probably $6.75 when that was an empty lot. It's been assessed at $30 million or something. I'm making that number up, but all these expansions, all the new houses over on Old York Road, the new houses that are planned over here on Mechanic Street, those are multi-million-dollar properties. They generate taxes, not much, but they're not capped. In other words, this expansion in the borough does add tax revenue, Bill.
Right. I didn't mean capped in a literal sense, Dan, but a constrained may be a choice of words in terms of growth that we might need for the future. A separate subject that we can talk about at another time, but I think it's something that from a financial management standpoint, we have to keep in mind as a small town. Not unusual.
Our ability to do anything about it.
Okay, let's move on, please.
Peter Meyer, please. Bill, thank you so much. I know you're going to take the time and analyze what's going to be posted, and you can email all your questions. We look forward to answering them for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Any other hands raised, Pete?
Yes, next is Kelly Whitman.
Kelly, if you can unmute yourself.
No, it was a spinning wheel, Connie, sorry. Hi, I just wanted to reiterate and say thanks to Dan. It was a really great overview. As a member of the public, it probably felt like you guys were doing a lot of work, but it was clearly explained for a general audience, which is, I completely understand, not an easy task. And I was going to ask a question about assessment, probably not to you, but I think that's a great point that you bring up as well. So I just wanted to thanks to everybody for all the work that goes in. It actually, it mattered and it really did helpful. So thank you. It helps us understand what's going on, and I think that's just good for everybody. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Next hand raised is Sandy Santello.
Sorry, I think I never put my hand down.
Okay.
I didn't do that, but while I have the opportunity, I really wanted to thank Dan. That was very thorough and really useful. I think it's what we've been looking forward to, and I just appreciate it. Thank you.
And Dan, I'm with Sandy, and it's Sharon Kaiser, and I totally appreciate all the work that you put into this, and I look forward to June when we get the mid-year report. But thank you very much.
Yeah.
You got it.
And now maybe somebody can tell me how to put my hand down. Oh, I see. Right. Down.
No other hands are raised.
Okay, thank you. Next is on the agenda is Planning Commission. Pete Meyer, do you have a report? You have to unmute yourself, Pete.
Yeah, I just did that. The biggest report I guess I have to report is that the original sketch plan for 218 towpath that was supposed to come before the Planning Commission, earlier this month got withdrawn because the developer was told that there was not going to be a big change in the negative review that they'd gotten for their plans previously under a different borough manager and planning commission. So they're rethinking what they're going to do there and not try and put in 4 townhouses and 12 parking spaces on the pedestrian and bicycle path. We look forward to something better there. We did a review of the zoning for the central commercial district and the regulations there, and are going to try and do some updating. Same thing for the urban residential, the RB regulations, and we're continuing to try and upgrade some of the zoning so that we don't have as many things having to come for appeals and things like that. And we've got better control over what's going on in town.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Peter. I'm the liaison to zoning. The zoning meeting was canceled, so I have no report. Next is Harb. Ken? Did we lose Kenny?
I don't see him on my screen here.
Okay, we lost him.
Here he comes.
Oh,
Here he
there
comes.
is. Ken, you gotta unmute yourself. You know what? I think he might be having problems. So let's move on. Do we have a manager's report?
I just have one announcement for tonight. Recently, we've been receiving some requests for past council meetings that were held via Zoom to be posted on our website. We will be working with our web administrator to looking into setting up a section on our website to have these Zoom meetings available for public viewing. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a solicitor's report?
We do not, thank you.
Thank you. Pete, under public comment, if you can read all the questions that were there, and we'll put them on the record, and I think they were all regarding the parking garage.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
The first one I received was from Bill Clapper. I believe that consideration of a parking garage for New Hope is premature and is only a temporary Band-Aid for an ongoing problem. The question of a parking garage should begin with an understanding of who should pay and who benefits from the development of the New Hope infrastructure needed to support the allowed downtown development. New Hope is implementing a strategy as a visitor destination where more and more people are invited for a temporary visit to our town. The infrastructure will have to improve to accommodate the volume of visitors, and then decisions will be made on how to attract even more visitors. This strategy and its impact has to be clearly defined so the council and the residents can be on the same page of how we are paying for this. Assuming we are already going down that path, then who benefits and who pays for the cost of infrastructure, repair, and growth? I would suggest that New Hope needs to rethink its source of revenue, especially its dependence on parking fees, as that will always be capped by the number of parking spaces available. Earned income tax is also limited by external controls, such as the state of Pennsylvania, and may not keep pace with needs. Most of the infrastructure growth mainly benefits visitors, not residents, yet you're asking residents to pay more taxes without measurable benefit. Let's evaluate ideas like hotel room taxes, food and beverages service charges, and other creative ways for the visitors to pay the cost of providing the services they expect. Philadelphia and Pittsburgh can charge a separate sales tax, and I understand the legislature is considering expanding that benefit to tourist locations. Rather than spend our money for RFP and litigation, let's hire a municipal tax expert for recommendations. Once these ideas are evaluated, a plan developed, only then can we decide what is best for New Hope, and we are willing to pay for it. I feel like I am being rushed into something because we have not adequately planned for this. Saying it's too late is not acceptable. Bill Clapper.
Okay, thank you. He's on the record. Who's next?
Catherine Kerr. We write as owners of one of the few residential properties in New Hope that would be directly impacted by construction of a parking garage on borough property at the rear of the Union Square development. We have a request that relates to the item on tonight's agenda, the request for design proposals. Please include the requirement that any proposed design include specific measures that mitigate light, noise, and visual impact. Our context. The existing borough parking lot is more or less adjacent to our backyard. Only the canal, a rail line, and a narrow roadway separate the two properties. At the time it was constructed, we complained to the borough about the bright lighting at the lot, and then borough manager John Burke worked with us to have shields installed on the lighting themselves to deflect some of the light from our property. The shields are long gone now, and when we sit in our family room at night with large glass windows that were added to capitalize on the view of our backyard and the pond there, the lights on that lot make it look as if we're living next to a shopping mall. Needless to say, we're very concerned about what it would be like to live across from a 5-level parking garage. Also, the memo we received yesterday refers to a March 29th press release as if it were something everyone is familiar with. In fact, we never saw it. We can't find it on the borough website. We appreciate if you would share again. Sincerely, Chris and Kathy Kerr.
Thank you. Next one.
Next one is from Betty Benton. I'm not convinced that we need a parking garage in New Hope. A multi-story building like that would be an eyesore, in my opinion. We now have Union Square, New Hope, Solebury High School lot, and the new Raven lot with shuttle service. Lambertville has no such parking garage. New Hope is only 1 square mile. How much traffic can and should it try to accommodate? What are other solutions? What other solutions are there? Betty Benton. Next is from Sandy Santello. The question is regarding a parking garage. Prior to hiring an architect and initiating RFQ/RFPs, has Council Borough completed a feasibility study and ROI? If so, can you please present to the community? And if not, why? What is the process and timeline? And when will there be public hearings? Sandy Santello. Next one is from Howard Lee. As a resident of North Main Street, I am very interested in any proposed plan to construct a parking garage in the borough. I understand New Hope has received $1.75 million grant from the state, which would, of course, only cover a small fraction of the expenditure involved in building such a structure. I would certainly hope that before moving forward, the town council sets up a dedicated series of public meetings to address this specific issue. Certainly, we all want to ensure that such a structure would be necessary, financially feasible, and fitting with the character of our exquisite community. New Hope is very special. We all have a responsibility to ensure that it remains special. I would hope for complete transparency on this issue. Sincerely, Howard Lee. And finally, Richard Gasek. I concur with Dr. Lee. I share the interest in total transparency on all borough projects that impact the community, fiscally, architecturally, and logistically. Thank you, Richard Gasek. And that's all.
Thank you. Peter Meyer, can you just give a real short summary with a lot of the questions? I know some of them were addressed in the article that we posted about public meetings and so forth. Can you give a short summary? You have to unmute yourself, Pete. Peter, unmute yourself. Peter, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Okay. First off, let's get one thing clear. We're not asking residents to pay more taxes. We are planning a parking garage, the fees for which, or the cost of the debt service for which, is going to be covered by licenses given to, or leases, if you will, long-term leases that various parties in town are going to sign for exclusive use of portions of that parking garage. That is our plan. We're in discussion with them now. That kind of information at the moment is still fuzzy enough that we can't even tell you exactly how many total spaces are in demand. But we're not building a parking garage that depends on additional real estate taxes. It's going to be financed by the parking. Item 1. Item 2. Sorry, I'm trying to run through the articles here. I mean, the questions here.
Peter, just do a quick summary. I think one of the
All right,
things...
fine. With regard to design, dealing with light, noise, visual impact, that is certainly part of what we're going to be talking to whoever we hire. And beyond that, I think that the biggest thing that I need to say with regard to the part of the garage is when we start talking about traffic in downtown New Hope, think about a parking garage, all of you who were in this meeting with us, think about a parking garage that is accessed off of 202, where people park and then walk into the downtown. They never drive through town. Wouldn't that be an improvement, including an awful lot of residents? Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. All right, Peter, are there any other public comments as we move along?
Yes, one hand is raised. Steve Coppins.
Yes.
Steve, if you could unmute yourself.
I think he's having problems again. Is
Oh,
there
Steve?
anyone else? Oh, here he is. Hi, Steve. Oh, he just popped up and disappeared. Is there another hand raised, Pete, till he comes back on?
There is, Mr. Duffy,
Yes.
if you could unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Good meeting tonight. Dan, you did a super job. Dan, looks like he left town already. Good job, Dan. The only thing I could make a comment on is about the garage. Why is council not wanting to do a meeting so we can ask our questions, we could talk, and we can communicate with the council? It seems like you're still keeping the community arm's length in terms of getting to talk to them. That's one comment, and I think what we've seen as a trend in terms of the garage issue is that most of the bigger operations have provided their own parking, especially the restaurants, and they are the big ones. Yes, they are, Peter. And that kind of says, let's look at this hard, because who's going to be renting this stuff during the week? You can look at all the parking areas in New Hope. They're empty during the week, except maybe for the Playhouse and maybe one other restaurant, but it's mostly empty. And I'm not sure how we cover the costs when you have that kind of condition where you have a weekend situation to people and you want to cover it with a parking garage. Now we have to look at the expenses to see if it makes sense, but that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
If I can
Any
answer
other-
Mr. Duffy real quick, President Gehring, in terms
Go
of
ahead.
the
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, in terms of the process, the council is not committed to any kind of building yet. They're just asking for a concept plan so they can see what it looks like and see if it makes sense to go forward. So to answer the question about the interaction between council and the public, this is the first very preliminary step. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of communication between everyone. I think tonight this council has demonstrated, as it has, at least well for the past several years, that it engages in these discussions and invites public comments. So I don't want anybody to walk away from this meeting thinking that the council is not going to be engaging the public in this endeavor, because
Even we didn't know that because there was no communication. All we saw were pieces in a paper.
Well,
and
again,
so we just
I
wanted
am
to get
saying
that
this
connection.
week for the second or third time tonight that the
Okay, Peter.
behind the 1.75 million that have been awarded to us tentatively by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania include the requirement of extensive public consultation. This is not the first time I have made that statement.
Peter, you guys hadn't communicated that to us what you were doing. You have a committee that we didn't know about, and it happens to be council people. And so you guys got to spend some more time spending with your resident friends, okay?
Thank you, Ed. Are there any other hands raised?
Yes, there's another hand, Sandy Santello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess the confusion is, and I just want to, that it's in the early stages, there'll be public hearings, but I think what throws me off a little bit is that we're negotiating leases, and it kind of sounds like that the parking lot is really predominantly for the larger businesses or hotels or all the new building in town, less so for the average tourist. So I think that's where I'm getting a little confused about, and I guess this will all be teased out, but it just seems weird to be negotiating leases when we don't even know what we're doing. Thank you.
Any other questions, Pete?
Yes, another hand is raised, Jonathan Rowe.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm talking for Mr. Copens. He's trying to log in. I'm on the. I don't think. Can you hear Mr. Copens? I don't think you can hear him.
No, we can't.
Okay. Connie, he said he's concerned about the water runoff from his project. You know.
We heard about it today. Peter Gray and our engineer are going to be working with him.
Okay. Okay. He go ahead, Stephen. He said thank you for getting it going. You got his letters. And if you can't get on,
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other, Peter?
Yeah, she cut you off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He'll try to get on again. Okay, he'll try to get on again. I don't want, it's too informal. So, if you can't get on, you'll get his messages, right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Clapper has his hand raised again.
One more time, Bill. Go ahead.
There we go. Peter, are you tracking the number of people that are attending the Zoom meetings?
Yes, I can determine that number, yes.
Can you tell us how many are in tonight?
There are 35 attendees.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Great. Thanks again for opening to Zoom. And Dan, thanks again for your efforts. Good night.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
No, that's it.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that.
Second. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. It's